What's up, everybody? My name is Hawk, and welcome to my new show, Let's Talk Hoops, a show where I plan on having amazing NBA conversations. Today, I have a really special guest that I'm really excited about. I got Brandon with me, aka Suns Geek. He's the biggest Suns fan I know. I don't know anyone who has a bigger collection of NBA hats. His content's amazing. Thank you, Brandon, so much for pulling up and being my first guest on this brand new show. Thank you so much for agreeing to this. I'm excited to have a conversation with you today.
Oh man, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I've been following your content for a while, man. Keep up the great work. And again, just thank you so much for having me. I was looking forward to this, and I'm ready to talk some Suns and some NBA, man. Let's do this.
Awesome, man. So the first question I have for you today, and the question I'm going to have for everybody I have on the show is, what got you to be a Suns fan? Like, where did that start? How did you get to become a Suns fan?
I really like talking about this stuff. I just remember when I was a kid, I just really loved basketball. I loved playing sports in general. And a lot of my family was originally from here. And then we ended up moving to Phoenix when I was a lot younger. And I just fell in love. And this was way before we got Steve Nash. And then
Wow.
really it was those run and gun Suns that really got me like hooked on Phoenix Suns basketball. And then even after that, kind of throughout that transition phase, and then during the whole playoff drought that we had in the 2010 era and all that, I was just following this team religiously and just tried to watch every game I could. But really, even when the Suns were bad, I was watching every NBA game I could, and I just fell in love with basketball, man.
Awesome. I like that. I like what I hear from fans who have been through the dark days and stuff. I've been through that with my Sixers during our process era. I like those type of fans. That
Exactly.
resonates
You
with
you
me.
know exactly what I'm talking about, man.
Next question I have for you is what was your favorite moment this season for the Suns? Whether that be the playoffs, whether it be a regular season, just a moment when you were like, I'm loving this right now.
God, you know what? Off the top of my head, probably our 18 game win streak, which I think was a franchise record. And
Yeah.
then also, I think when we got that 63rd or 64th win, obviously that was a franchise record, but Devin Booker gave an autographed jersey to our longtime broadcaster. You might be able to see
Really?
him over
Yeah.
here, Al McCoy,
Yep.
who's been doing this since before either of us were born for decades
Wow.
now. He went over and gave him a hug, gave him the jersey, and just it was just really throughout the season, like the winning streaks and just seeing this team play dominant basketball. You and I just talked a moment ago about your trust the process Sixers, and how the Phoenix Suns had that long playoff drought. For a while, I was like, man, I'm not used to winning basketball. So just seeing it night in, night out, for the most part, there was a few hiccups along the way, but just seeing this team grow, just seeing this team shine. There were some games where I'm like, man, we're getting our butts kicked in the first half, and then we end up coming back. I haven't seen that in so long. Like even just now, talking about it gives me chills. So I'm probably forgetting like 100,000 moments from this past Suns season, but those are just two off the top of my head.
Awesome. Yeah, the Suns had a really great season. I enjoyed watching them a lot this year as well. Um, so let's get into a little bit of off-season stuff, right? I'll call it the Ayton saga ended with Phoenix matching that 4-year, little bit over $130 million contract that was offered from the Indiana Pacers. My question is, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about the signing itself? Maybe some expectations for Ayton, and then I'm really curious on your thoughts on. Do you feel there's, I don't know if the word is animosity, or do you feel there may be any friction still between Ayton and the front office, considering it took them so long to actually do it? And then how do you feel if there's any friction between Ayton and Monty himself with those comments that happened towards the end of that playoff series?
Okay, so just so if anybody is watching me for the first time, just so we know, usually I'm a very biased but optimistic Suns fan. Even throughout the dark days, I always kept it positive. This is where I'm going to kind of change my tune a little bit. I'm DeAndre Ayton's biggest critic, but yet I'm his biggest believer. And first off, to answer the first question, it was the right move to re-sign him. Now, there's obviously a lot of criticism and speed bumps about how that all happened. But once the deal was actually signed, which by the way, they signed it in seconds, not
Yeah,
minutes, not hours,
like
not days.
instantly.
It was just boom, which is that's got to be flattering for DeAndre Ayton. And I'm super happy for him and his family. Like he has a couple kids and all that. He's a big
Oh,
family
really
man.
nice. Yeah.
But I will say that he is going to have to work his tail off this season because unfortunately, man, DeAndre Ayton, there's just so much untapped potential. And yes, he's a double-double machine. He's the biggest player most nights out on the court, and he's still young, he's still growing and developing, but you know that there can just be so much more. And I have seen this guy since his college days, and I've seen him since day one in the NBA. You're like, there's just so much more room for growth. And you don't want to give him unrealistic expectations. Like, he's not Wilt Chamberlain. He's not going to go out there and grab 40 rebounds and 60 points, but you know it's there. So hopefully that answers your question. Was there a couple other questions that I might have missed throughout there?
Do you think Ayton, you touched on it a little bit, and how the fact that they offered it quickly is definitely flattering to Ayton, but do you think there may be some friction there, or do you think everything's kind of smoothed out?
That's what we're all hoping for. We haven't heard anything. Maybe around NBA Media Day, possibly. Yeah. I really hope that him and Monty Williams did go to dinner, and maybe him in the front office, because James Jones, he said something along the lines that, like, during the exit interviews, he's like, we love DeAndre Ayton and we want continuity and we're going to bring him back and just all that stuff. But, like, there's something there, or those reports wouldn't have came out. And we all saw the disaster that was, game 6 and 7 for the Phoenix Suns, and the whole, like, it's internal. That's why I only played DeAndre Ayton 17 minutes or whatever. But I'm praying that they worked it out. And if I know Monty Williams and James Jones, like I would like to pretend that I do, they're gonna work it out. I hope they did before he signed it. You know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't want to sign a contract with two important guys who you're, having friction and trouble with. The whole Robert Sarver's, our owner thing, is a completely different conversation for another time. But he was there. They showed pictures of him there when he signed the contract, and I'm praying that they resolve their issues.
Okay. I agree. I think there's definitely some untapped potential there with Ayton. I'm a guy who's really high on him. I think he could be really, really nice in the league. I'm looking forward to seeing him this year as well.
Yeah, you know what? I think sometimes I'm a little too hard on him because night in and night out, most nights he does this thing. But Suns fans kind of want it to be like, you need to be there 9 out of 10 games, not like 6 or 7, Yeah. Because there's some games where he's not engaged. And there's been, like, Suns fans are like, well, we're not getting him the ball enough, and we need to run our offense through him and all that. But defensively, man, he is our anchor. And even though it may not show up statistically, our defense looks a lot different without him. I will say that. So I try to give DeAndre Ayton as much credit as I can, but at the same time, there's room for growth.
Yeah, I like that. So, as I said it before we started, Chris Paul is my favorite point guard of all time. He's one of my favorite players of all time, and just in general. I would say that Chris Paul, even as he's getting older, they were arguably, and I don't even think it's arguably, he was a top 10 point guard this past season. You can make the argument he was top 5, one of the best point guards in the league. There were moments during the playoffs where he may have looked a little bit less than stellar. I think, in my mind, a great remedy for that, and I'm curious on your opinion on this as well, is do you implement a little bit of load management for Chris Paul during the regular season to make sure his legs are fresh during the regular season? Now, part of that load management would mean leaning on Cameron Payne a little bit more. I think the year you guys had your finals run, Cameron Payne looked stellar. Yep. To me, he took a little bit of a step back this past season.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious on your thoughts on maybe some expectations for Cameron Payne, and maybe your thoughts on Chris Paul doing a little bit of load management this upcoming season, because I felt like he hasn't done that yet with the Phoenix Suns.
I'll start with the Chris Paul thing first. I would not want to have that conversation with Chris Paul. I don't know how Monty Williams and his coaching staff are going to do that, because Chris Paul as well as I do, man. He wants to play. Doesn't matter, rain, shine, snow, injured or not, feeling sick or not, he wants to play. But at the same time, you're right. He's getting up there in age, and he was a top 10 point guard this season, and he had some incredible moments. I probably could have mentioned that earlier when we were talking about some of the best moments. But you're right. Age is catching up, and Father Time always wins. I think because of what we witnessed in the playoffs and that terrible collapse that we had, and again, that's not 110% Chris Paul's fault, but I think you have to. And that's where Devin Booker needs to continue to be the star of this team. He needs to take on more responsibility. DeAndre Ayton needs to. And that's where I'll touch on Cameron Payne. Cameron Payne has to play incredible this season, or I think he's gone because he's on a
Mm,
pretty friendly contract. He signed a really good deal, like when we
yeah.
first got him, and I think he's on an expiring contract if I remember correctly. And he was bad, man. Throughout there were some stretches he was okay, but probably end of the season, all the way into the playoffs, he got benched. And there
Yeah.
were times he just played a little too excited. You know what I mean? He just went out there and was playing too quick, putting up crazy shots, couldn't really get anything going on offense. And I'm not saying he's not working his tail off, but he got benched, man. So he has to show from day one that, hey, I'm the backup point guard of this team. And, I'll keep pointing the fingers, man. Landry Shaman has to play better. I could go down the roster, but you are right. Cameron Payne has to step up while we're, quote, load managing Chris Paul. I don't know how those minutes are going to work, but yeah, Chris Paul might need to take a little bit of a breather this season.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up you wouldn't want to have that conversation with Chris Paul because I
No.
remember, I think it was an interview on Monty it was during your finals run when he was talking about him being injured with playing against the Lakers,
Yeah.
and Monty was saying, I remember Monty saying, "I tried to tell him not to play," and Chris
Yep.
looked at me and was like, "No, Monty, put me out there, I'm playing." So
See,
I can
what I
see
mean?
Chris Paul being a guy who's like, "I'm not sitting out. If I'm
Yeah.
ready to go, I'm going."
Exactly.
Yeah,
He's played through injuries, whether Suns fans wanted him to or not. I think throughout, I don't know if it was last year's playoff run or the finals or whatever, he literally played like on one arm. And you could just
yeah,
tell by his body language and the way he was dribbling and not taking those shots that he can easily make. That's when you know something's wrong with Chris Paul. I don't want to throw COVID in there, but sometimes COVID's been an issue. But
yeah.
I don't know. I
That's the
wish him
thing.
the best. I'm praying he stays healthy, and we'll just have to see, man.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious, what are your expectations for Devin Booker going into the season? You talked about in the idea of load managing Chris Paul, Devin Booker would have to step up.
Yep.
I loved him this past season. He entered
Yep.
some MVP conversations, especially towards the end of the season as you guys started to win more and more games. I'm looking at Devin Booker's game. Me personally, in terms of scoring wise, I don't know if he can get, unless he's going to average 30. Like he had an amazing year last year, but I
Yeah.
do hear people saying they want him to do more. I don't know what that could be though. What are your expectations
I
for
know,
Devin
and
Booker?
that's where maybe I might have been a little too critical. Like, yeah, he can obviously raise the scoring average, although I think he's the highest scorer on the team and one of the highest scoring Phoenix Suns of all time. But you're right. I mean, maybe the playmaking can be a little bit
Mm,
better, although I think he might have averaged like 5 assists this past
yeah,
season. His numbers just keep going up. He could probably improve his 3-point shooting, but these are just little nitpicks that Devin Booker already knows. I think he's improved on the defensive end. I'm not saying he's like a Marcus Smart or a Mikhail Bridges type defender, but he can hold his own. He can test shots. He knows how to play. Again, his defense keeps growing. I just think he just needs to do what he did all last season, each and every single night, and just continue to grow. The experience has already been there, especially after not making the playoffs his first like 5 or 6 seasons or whatever. And it's crazy too, as I just said that, I'm like, man, Devin Booker's still so young, and it feels like he's been in the league forever. I mean, he's not even 30
yeah,
yet, man.
yeah.
But I will say this though, and again, I'm kind of being nitpicky and all that. He did just sign a massive contract, 200 million, whatever, something dollars. Plus, he's on the cover of 2K23. You better bring it this year, Devin Booker, because the
Yeah,
expectations
yeah.
are going to be all on you, man.
Great cover too, by the way. Great
Yeah,
cover.
that cover was awesome. There was like a leaked cover that came out, and I'm like, someone's either really good at making those, or that's like the
Yeah,
legit cover.
yeah,
And
yeah.
there it is.
So we touched on what I'll call the Phoenix Suns big three: Ayton, Chris Paul, Devin Booker. Who's someone else that you're probably the most excited about this season?
Man, I gotta just go off my gut here. Mikhail Bridges, man. I've been Mikhail Bridges. I've been just so a fanboy of him since we drafted him. I didn't really know too much about him coming out of college because I only focus on the NBA, and then around draft time I'll start to do
You
my
sound like
quote
me.
homework. Yeah, exactly. But I heard just great things about him. I knew about his college career, and then since day one, I was like, man, Mikhail Bridges is going to be one of the best defenders in the league. And that's exactly what we saw. In my personal opinion, he should have won Defensive Player of the Year, with all due respect to Marcus Smart and that Celtics team that turned around their defense and everything. I hope he wins it this upcoming year, but he does need to take a little bit of an offensive growth. I want to say he maybe averages around 12 points or less, but there are times, man, where he is just swerving through the defense, putting up those little fadeaways. He can score, and he's one of the best cutters in the league, if not the best. He will cut to the basket and you won't even know that he blew past you. But you kind of wish that he would take like that bigger step. And again, a lot of Suns fans will be like, kind of like with the DeAndre Ayton thing. Oh, how come we're not running our offense through Mikhail Bridges and DeAndre Ayton? I don't know. There's only one basketball. There's 5 players on the court, so we'll just have to see. So really, I hope that he continues to be elite on defense, and I hope that he continues to grow offensively. He did have some pretty high scoring games this year, and everybody loves shooting threes too. So,
yeah. So we touched on it beforehand. Talking about Cameron Payne, talking about Landry Shamet, some of that bench depth. Bismack Biyombo looked to be pretty good for you guys in the postseason. Because I think part of it, because of his great play, you guys let JaVale McGee go. Dario Saric is coming back into the lineup, coming back off of that meniscus surgery. How do you feel about your depth?
That's an excellent question. I probably could have thrown Cam Johnson into our little Mikhail Bridges conversation. He's good, and along with Cam Payne too. I think that those are going to be 3 of the guys right there that really need to step it up. I really like our bench and our depth and everything. But to be honest with you, man, I don't know if we're good enough. Like, obviously, we're going to be a contender and everything, but there might need to be some changes on the bench. And that's kind of where I was like, Cam Payne, if you don't perform this year, you're probably gone, man. Like, and I hate to pick on him and everything. We didn't really see too much out of Torrey Craig throughout much of the last season and throughout the playoffs and everything. I really love Bismack Biyombo, though. I hope he's with us for a long time, because you obviously have that size and that experience and the defense from Bismack Biyombo. He loves it here in Phoenix as well. And I've heard great things about Damian Lee and Josh Okogie, but those are like kind of 3rd unit guys and everything. We're praying that Dario Saric is available as soon as possible. I think before we went live, I read a report that he's overseas right now. I think he's playing or something. I don't know. Okay. I have to kind of dive a little bit into it, but it's going to take him a while. Everything I've seen, sometimes they upload like little workout videos. He looks healthy, but like getting onto a court and playing 5-on-5 full contact is a completely different story. But once he is back, I think it is going to benefit this team. And I'm not saying we would have won the championship last year or even beaten the Mavericks, but if Dario Saric was healthy, I would have given us a better chance, because he was really solid throughout, the NBA Finals run a couple years ago and all the way up until he got injured. He was pretty good, man. I mean, he obviously had his flaws. There were times where he wouldn't play or had bad games, but they all do. Let's be real. So hopefully that answers your question, but our bench has a lot to prove this season.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. And I hope Dario comes back for you. I said this before we started. I miss Dario and my Sixers. I really do, man.
I know that the 2016 draft class wasn't that good, man, but he was one of the best rookies that year. He almost won Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. So, if he didn't go through his injury stuff, I think he probably would have got it over Malcolm Brogdon that year. I really do. That could be some Sixers bias, though. You touched on it a little bit talking about your depth. What are your expectations, or a prediction, if you will, about your Suns this season?
It would obviously be incredible if we could somehow win 60 games. I think it's extremely unlikely, because the Western Conference got a lot better. I don't normally agree with ESPN too much, but they did a recent Western Conference projections, and they had Phoenix surprisingly first. But one thing that I liked was they had them at 56 wins. I think that's realistic for Phoenix. Even if they're not like the first seed, I think they can at least get to 50. I think they have to get to 50 games. But yeah, 64 wins. That's like a once in a lifetime thing that happened. We probably won't see that for a while. Even if things are clicking on all cylinders and we're healthy and everything, I don't think 64 wins is possible. And you know what? After the regular season, obviously I want to see, continued growth from this entire team all season. I need our bench to step up and everything. We got to stay healthy. But once we get to the playoffs, we cannot allow what happened to us to happen again. And even if it's not just getting blown out, like, we can't lose in the second round. It's championship or bust. And it was the same thing last year, same thing before. Even though the first year we kind of exceeded expectations, championship or bust. And, we barely survived that Pelicans series. I don't want to see that in the first round again. It's obviously going to be difficult. No playoff series is, or no playoff series is easy, but we can't get embarrassed like we did last year in the playoffs. It's championship or bust.
Yeah, I can see that. So last question I have for you, Brandon. I know you're a huge Suns fan, but I know you also love the NBA in general. So what's
Yes,
the
sir.
one team outside of the Suns that, just from a fan perspective, that you're the most excited to watch this season?
Oh man, I got a whole list here. You mentioned you're a big Sixers guy and everything. I got some friends in the Sixers community, fellow content creators. They all do great work and everything. I feel like I'm kind of a quote honorary Sixers fan because I've been following them and all their creators, and I've been watching that team grow. Really excited for them. I love the addition of PJ Tucker for you guys. You guys also got DeAnthony Melton, who used to play for the Phoenix Suns. Two solid
Yeah,
defenders. PJ Tucker's a veteran in this league. Sixers fans are going to love him. I kind of mentioned it earlier. I'm excited for the Celtics because they obviously went to the finals. They were one of the most improved teams from this past season. I could keep going down the list. The Clippers are probably going to be really good. It might take them a while to gel. They're going to be elite. I'm really excited for the Pelicans too, man. Because again,
yes,
they almost beat us last year, but it's not even just that. Our former assistant coach, Willie Green, is now their head coach.
yeah,
They have a lot of Phoenix Suns guys that, connections over there. They had a really good draft, in my opinion. Zion's hopefully coming back healthy. Watch out for the Pelicans. And I know I sound crazy here. Please don't click off the video for me saying this. I'm excited for the Sacramento Kings. You and I kind of had this conversation, if you know what I'm talking about. On paper, they look really good. And I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs or anything, but just don't sleep on the Kings,
yeah.
basketball fans. They could be good. Not great, but good.
The Kings are going to be one of those teams that, if I see they're playing that night, I'm going to do
Yeah.
my best to try to watch that game because they're going to be exciting to watch for sure.
Yeah. And again, there's probably like 5 or 6 teams I totally missed. But that's just off the top of my head. But yeah, hopefully the Kings can turn it around and end that playoff drought because the loyal Sacramento Kings fans deserve it.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, Suns Geek, thank you so much for pulling up to the first episode of Let's Talk Hoops. I have all of your links and everything in the description below. If you're watching this, follow him, guys. Follow him. He's great. He covers the Suns very in depth. His content's amazing. He's a great Twitter follow as well. If you'd like to plug yourself, let the people know about yourself a little bit more, feel free.
Well, first off, man, once again, it's an honor to finally work with you. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much, man. And yeah, my friend Philly Take with RB said it perfectly one time. He's like, if you want to know about like the 10th, 11th man on the roster, this channel's for you. And that's how it is over here at Suns Geek, you guys. You're going to learn about the bench players. You're going to learn about the assistant coaches. You're going to get live streams. I'm going to try to go more live this season. Constant videos. Like, I try not to go a week without uploading. I'm always uploading. You're going to get everything Phoenix Suns. That's an understatement. You're going to get positive, optimistic videos. And, I'd appreciate it if you guys could check me out and follow me on all my social media links.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Brandon. And thank you guys for watching this first episode of Let's Talk Hoops.